All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about something that affects pretty much all of us: how cities actually plan for housing. It's a huge, complicated challenge, so where do they even start? Let's break it down.
I mean, when you think about it, it seems like an almost impossible job, right? Planning for millions of people for decades to come. But there is a method to the madness, and it all starts with one single, really important document.
And that foundation is what's known as the city's master plan. You can think of this as the ultimate high level guide for pretty much everything the city wants to do, from building roads and parks to, you guessed it, housing. Okay, so the official kind of jargony term for it is the Integrated Development Plan, or IDP. And the keywords to focus on here are single and inclusive. The whole idea is for this to be the one central strategy that pulls every single piece of city management together. The easiest way to wrap your head around the IDP is to think of it like the main architectural blueprint for a house. It shows the whole structure, how the rooms connect, the big picture stuff. It's the grand vision. But of course, a blueprint alone doesn't build a house. That IDP is supported by a whole bunch of more detailed, specific plans. You've got one for housing, one for how land gets used, a financial plan, even one for waste management. Each one adds a critical layer of detail to that main blueprint. Now, you might be thinking they probably create these huge plans and then just stick them on a shelf to gather dust, right? Well, not exactly. A city is always changing. It's a living, breathing thing, so its plans have to be too. In fact, and this is crucial, these plans get a full review every single year. It's this constant cycle of checking in, making tweaks, and updating things to make sure the plans still actually make sense for what's happening on the ground.
So, why go through all that work every year? Well, it really boils down to three main reasons. First, you got to make sure you're keeping up with any new laws. Second, you have to check that these detailed plans still line up with the city's big picture vision. And finally, you want to be sure they're actually pushing the city toward its major long-term goals.
Okay, so we've got the general idea of how city planning works. Now let's zoom in and put the spotlight on the specific plan for housing. This is the key document we're talking about today, the Integrated Human Settlements Sector Plan. To put it simply, this is the city's official, legally required game plan for everything related to housing: how it's built, how it's managed, the whole shebang. So let's go back to our house analogy. If that big master plan, the IDP, is the overall blueprint, then this housing plan is like the super detailed schematic for all the plumbing and the electrical wiring. It's the plan for the systems that actually make the house work for the people living in it. Right, so we know these plans get reviewed every year, which brings us to the most important question. What actually changed in the 2023 update to this housing plan? Well, according to the official documents, the changes were described as minor. But in the world of city planning, minor doesn't mean unimportant. It usually points to a very deliberate strategic adjustment. And in this case, it was all about getting the housing plan perfectly aligned with the city's newest priorities. So here's the real story. Buried within those so-called minor changes was one pretty significant update, and it all centered around a program focused on land release. Basically, the 2023 update adds a lot more detail and muscle to a mayoral priority program that's all about land release. The idea is pretty straightforward. Release city-owned land to the private sector. Why? Because this is now seen as a major tool for getting more affordable housing built. And it wasn't just about big ideas either. The update also included a refreshed implementation plan. So it's not just the what, it's also a clearer how, a step-by-step process for how this land release is actually supposed to work. Okay, so let's tie this all together. We've gone from the 30,000-foot view of the city's master plan all the way down to a specific tweak in the housing sector. So what's the bottom line? What does this all mean? First, and this is really important, this isn't just some theory or a draft. This updated plan, with its new focus on land release, was officially approved by the City Council on March 29th, 2023. This is now official policy. And really, the most important takeaway from this whole 2023 update is this right here. The city has fine-tuned its strategy to really double down on using land release as one of its main weapons to fight one of its biggest challenges: creating more affordable housing. And that leaves us with a big, lingering question. The plan is approved, the strategy is set, so what happens next? What does the road from a policy document to an actual front door with a key look like? Well, That is the challenge that lies ahead.